Alright, I'm back here with the board. I'm going to go ahead and do a power up here. I've got controller power, this HDMI right here plugged in. We should get a slow glow on the LED. Then it should turn solid once I switch over to the input. Let's see what we get. Yep. Now I'm going to go ahead and open the OSD, which is left, right, L1, L2, or I'm sorry, L1, R2, and then D-pad right and circle. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the system and then the debug self-test. And I'm going to confirm that I have hearts on everything. If you don't have hearts, then you've got some bridge pins somewhere. So, I'm going to go and power down, so that looks good. Switch to the overhead here. And now we can just start putting it back into the case. Okay, we need to remove these two screws that we had in for the heatsink. And then you can also see when we put this on, these are going to make contact with that. So we just need to cut a few of these off. I think about 3 is enough. And just side cut them like this. 1, 2, 3. And then you can see that easily clears that. So let's screw these back in. Just the 4 small screws go right in here on the bottom side, and then our bottom shield is on. If you want, while you're here, you can go ahead and plug this drive cable in. However, I usually plug the drive in very last. Oops, forgot this. That was a big deal. Do not forget to put that plastic shield down. I imagine this whole board would just short out. It seems like most of the cases I have ever done, the plastic stays in this metal shield. So that is definitely not a common thing that happens. I can't even tell which way this goes. Let's see, looks like it goes like so. Looks like it goes like so. Alright. 2 more screws here. Where's the other screw? There it is. Okay. Bottom shield is on. We can flip her over. We can kind of just start putting it back together here. you want to, you can set it back in the case. This just folds straight down into that, goes straight up. Okay. Now we can go ahead and screw our board back in. Need a bigger screwdriver. We need our other screw here. Guess I'll use this M2 screw. I'll put a normal drive pin back in there. All right, so now our board's screwed in, so we'll just hook up the FFC, and I just gently wrap it around like so. Push it in, and I won't fold it down yet. I actually do fold it or lay it flat, but I'm gonna wait till we get everything going. I'm gonna plug in our Wi-Fi antenna. Just press this down there, and I just usually like run it there on top of the fan. You can use this little. Let's see how we can route this easier. See what looks the best. I think I'll go like this is on this setup. Sometimes there's heat sinks here and it's easier to route it through, so we're just gonna put that right there. Okay, now that we essentially have this in place, I'm gonna do another test before I close it up. Just to verify, we get video again and everything looks okay. Our FFC cable is not plugged in properly, so hold on here, it just is not seated tight. I did not get an LED on the board. That was what made me first look at that. All right, so now we're got good video here. I'll power off. Now I'm just going to finish up the install. I'm going to set the drive back in. Honestly, this is a difficult, kind of difficult to get this to go in and stay. It's a very tight, tight area. So essentially, you're just trying to put this FFC cable in, like so, and then flip it around. Don't try and pull this off. It's glued down, and it's just don't try and pull it off. It's not worth your headache, because if you do pull it off, cool, but then you have to keep it from, like this will now be disconnected and the laser will hit it. So I just leave it how it is. And then we're also this FFC is not seated properly. I can see. So let's reseat this. All right, now we're seated properly. Alright, I should have another screw terminal here from an old install that didn't go back together. Bear with me here. Oh, it should have one. It should. We'll just leave it out for now, not to slow down the video. So I'm just going to leave that undone for now. How I usually fold this down is I kind of just see how it wants to lay and just kind of try and avoid the shield, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to kind of do something like that. And then when the case goes down, it'll just sit flat. All right, and then let's go ahead and get our top half on. We're missing one screw here in the front. Don't forget that guy. Keep that pushed down. Oh, looks like we are going to make contact with this. So this needs to be go like this. We'll just go on that side. The drive comes over here, so it's hitting that plastic. All right. Just make sure everything clips down. Screw it back together. Use power tools, make sure to have a torque value, so you don't over torque these, because you'll easily strip out the plastic screw bosses. We'll just work our way around here. All right. And now we've got a HDMI mounted console here. Usually what I like to do, so this particular model doesn't have a screw hole in it. For example, this model right here, this is a 75,000, has this screw hole right here. That's what this little extra clip is for. It essentially goes, you screw it in there with an M3 screw, and then when the lid lifts, it doesn't lift all the way and hit the HDMI connector. This one does not have it, so we can't put that in, so we just have to be careful with that. So after I do an install like this, I usually let the console run for, I don't know, an hour or so, just to make sure that everything gets warmed up and everything checks okay. I'll leave it depowered and then start it up again. And do that only a few times, and then if it's good, then it's good. So let's go ahead and boot up again. And that sounds horrible. So I think I have the drive plugged in wrong or something. Let me get my controller here. That's what I'm looking for. Let's see if we get anything. Yeah, it's not detecting my disc. Yeah, looks like the head is not plugged in correctly. Let me look at that real quick. Pretty sure I had it together, but that one connector on the bottom of the drive head needs to be tight. Usually when you get that knocking sound, that means that the head is not making good communication. So okay, let's see what we got here. That looks okay. That was not tight. So this right here was off. So I think that was it. To double check. I'm gonna power up. There is two yeah, so that still didn't do it. Okay. So let's confirm that this is plugged in. I may not have plugged it in tight on that. So let's push that to the back. Put these in too tight. Okay. Because the sensor, you see what's happening is this sensor right here is on this head. So this motor never thinks that the lens hits this top up here. And that's why it just bangs. So we gotta pull this back out and let's see what we got here. And it may just not be inserted all the way. So let's just lift it up and I wanna see if it seems okay. However, it is super dirty. But let's try it again. And let's make sure this one is all the way tight. That seems to be seated all the way. Let's see if that makes a difference. Don't even need a game, we can just... Yeah, so there we go. Just obviously a weak connection. Let's go ahead and set this back on. Oops, totally forgot to put the drive screws in. So let's do that first. Okay. Let's screw these back in. We are almost done. Alright, so now we're back in business here. Let's do a quick test. And then we'll be done with this video. Let's power up. I hear some discs spinning. Looks like we're booting. All right, perfect. And that's pretty much the install. Let me know if you have any problems. Thank you. All right, so we're plugged up here and ready to test. We should get a slow glowing LED, which we do. I'm going to go ahead and plug in our digital board here and see if we get anything. Okay. All right, sorry about that. I was just doing some checking here on my power. This is actually not the correct location to solder, so I'm going to have to edit this out. So you guys don't solder the wrong spot. I'm going to go ahead and desolder both of these. So the voltage source you're actually looking for is about 3.4. I just thought this one was a little bit low when it read 3.1, but that is not a valid spot. This via right here is fine. So I'm just going to move this over here. Just cover those up, that's fine. And we're just going to add some solder to this. Let's see if we can bridge these. Nope. All right, not getting to that via, so I'm just going to scrape a little off just to allow some solder to flow through. Okay. All right, and let's come back over and try it again. All right, let's go ahead and plug us back in. Let's get our board over here. Plug our gem board back in. Now we should get a slow glow. And we do. So let's check on the video here. I'm not getting any video, so this will be a good double check point here. I'm going to verify I get video on analog still. And going to do. And we'll see if we get anything here. All right, give me 1 second. Good morning, everyone. Dan with Pixel FX. I'm going to do a slim install here for the PS2Digital on the Retro Gym. I've got a 77,000 here in one. I've never opened it. I've confirmed the board and everything works fine. I mean the motherboard, like on the analog, and I've confirmed everything's good. So we're just going to go do an install. This is a cut mod. So I'll be going over the cut mod for this one. That takes a little bit longer than the no cut. So let's get started. First things first is we need to do a tear down. So we're just going to pull all these caps off here. And I'll give more details about what's needed for the install as we continue on. Because honestly, you can talk forever about this. And I want this video to be around an hour. Alright, so here's the void sticker. Alright, and I'm going to use a little bit of power tools here. These are just Phillips. I'm going to remove these 6 screws. And the reason I say is test the console before you do this. It's just, if you buy a console on eBay, some people never actually plug them in, test them, they install the mod, and then it's not working, and it turns out the GPU is fried in the console the entire time. So it's just an easy double check. So flip it over, and then this just kind of just pulls up and kind of snap off. Console doesn't look too bad here. So let's go ahead. We have a couple things. So before we get too into this, I want to go over this flex cable real quick, just so some people understand what we're actually soldering to and what the points are. So these are all the digital bus pins in power. Power for the 1.8. And then right here we have all the pads for the audio and controller lines and reset. And this is a 5-volt hookup line, and this is a 3.3 hookup line. Just wanted to go over those. So let's get back to the console here. So let me zoom back out. Okay. And then I usually remove the disk drive first. Actually, it doesn't matter. We'll do it this way. Let's go ahead and pull the whole thing out. There's a screw up here. And this whole thing will come off. If this is stuck, it's always back here is what it's stuck on. This is a plastic thing that slides into. I've encountered some that are really tight. And it ends up being this screw post right here is just gripped by the metal, and when you pull, it just pulls that plastic, kind of like a hook for fishing. So let's go ahead and pull everything off the top here. I'm going to disconnect the drive. I'm just going to pull off the motor first, and then I'm going to pull off these 2 connectors here. This is an FFC, so you got to pull the locking pin up. Let's see if we can get a better view of this. Be careful not to break it. Pulls up. And then interestingly enough, this had that void seal on it still. I wonder if there's no screw here on that. I wonder if someone heated the void seal up and pulled it off without breaking it, or this is legit mod for this drive not to have that screw there. So we'll look. Anyways, make sure the drive unit or the laser head is all the way in the back, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to pivot this straight up, flip it over, and then just pick up on the FFC tab here, and this will slide right out. Now our drive's free. Like I said, this is usually a drive pin here, so I'm not sure what this screws, if someone's been in this before, or what. And then I also like to leave all the FFC stuff connected. Some of these backers come off on the PS2s, so I like to not remove them. So essentially that's it. We remove this one screw right here, which is normally a drive pin, but you know. And then let's go ahead and flip it over. And remove these bottom screws. I do have a little bit of a power screwdriver here. And after we remove these 4 screws out, the bottom shield will be free. Just make sure not to lose your screws. These are all M2. They look to be like 4 millimeters in length, maybe 5. So if you do lose them, just M2 screws is all you need. So this will come off now. Don't lose the plastic shield. Okay. First things first, we want to mount the HDMI board. When you pull this off, make sure not to kink this. So on a couple of these kits, there's sometimes a screw here already here and drilled and tapped. That screw lines up perfectly with this hole. So it makes alignment real easy on those. On the ones where there is no screw hole, there is a little bit of extra work we have to do to get the alignment correct. So this is how I start that. We're going to take the, let's see, where is our top case at? I just set it over here. Okay, so here's our top case. We're going to take this is the cut drill guide. Go ahead and break this little standoff. Just put it to the side. And then this right here will go inside the SPDIF part. And there you can see that's the hole we need to cut. So how I like to do this is I'm just going to take some side cutters, and I'm not going to cut right here on the edge because the plastic will deform. I'm going to go in the middle here just a little bit, and I'm just going to cut some marks here. And what I'm doing is, you can see as the plastic kind of separates when I cut it, so I'm not trying to get too close to the edge. Just going to get some relief here for stuff to be able to move into, and then I'm just going to kind of slowly just remove some material with these. And you can see I can pull that off, and then I can just kind of work my way with this one cut right here. And just get this kind of block out. And just kind of cutting around on it. This plastic's not too hard to file up. Just working on my original cuts. I know I'm not that close to the edge, so I don't have to fret too much about getting close. And then I'm just going to straighten this off with an X-Acto knife here on the bottom. focus on camera. So you can see I've got a pretty good start here. I still got a ways to go, but you want to be definitely a lot less than more. So we're just going to keep working our way down. I'm going to leave the jig on, and now I'm just going to kind of take an X-Acto knife and just kind of cut down. We're just going to keep cutting here. And I'm just using an X-Acto knife and just squaring up with the alignment tool. Let's see where we're at. So you can see I'm getting close to this one side. I still have a significant amount of material on this and on the bottom. So let's just make sure my alignment tool's good here. I'll pull this off, and now I know I need to work my way up quite a bit, so I'm just gonna just file away here. Or not file, but X-Acto knife away, scrape. And now that I have that, so we're pretty close, I'm gonna go ahead and see what we look like here. So you can see my alignment here. I'm going to take a file, and now I'm just going to try and square up exactly what I've cut. And I just want to make it look symmetrical and even as possible. I don't totally care about the fitment yet. You can see we're starting to get a little bit better here. This is a little tedious, takes some time. You know, the more you do, the easier it gets. And then while I'm at it here, I'm also going to cut off this piece right here. This piece will get in the way. Ooh, totally just destroyed that X-Acto knife. Let's use cutters. Just going to cut straight down on here. And we're also going to cut off this little doohickey right here. There's a little piece of plastic that comes and sticks out. We're just going to cut that off flush. Let me get a new X-Acto knife blade. All right, sorry about that. Okay, let's go in the hole. There we go. All right. So I'm just gonna, let's see where we're at. Okay, we're close. You can do a test fit. This piece is going to sit up inside this, so you can see that I still have a significant amount of material to go still. Not significant, but it's definitely not sliding in easily. So we're just going to keep working our way around. And I'm just going to use a file because I can remove small amounts of material. little bit. All right, and see what we look like now. All right. So just need a little bit more on the top and the one side. So I'm going to take my file. I'm just going to take some shavings off. Probably have a 32nd of an inch or maybe a 16th to remove on the top. All right, square it up. Okay. And so now it fits, but it's real tight. And so I'm actually going to stop here. I'm not going to finish this hole just yet. Actually, I am going to finish it. So since this doesn't have the alignment screw on it, your alignment toward this board mounts. Here, we can do it. We can finish the hole later. So the reason I say that is if you already have the alignment screw here on this shield, that's 100% going to go there, and it's going to line up perfectly to this. Since there's no alignment screw, wherever we put our drill holes in, this could be off, you know, a little bit, and so it's going to correlate to the back of the case. So I want to mount this first, pretty close to where the hole is, and then I can fine-tune the hole at the end. So to do that, we need to first prep this mount on this. Since we're doing a cut mod, we need to remove this bottom piece on this. This is pretty easy to do. You just take an X-Acto knife and cut on the back side. See if my knife is strong enough here. Or use just some cutters here. Let's see, it'll just break off here. Put this back in so I got a little better grip. There's just a little bit of a connection here. All right, so I just went through that, and then you can see how it's kind of hooked together, and then it's hooked together on the front, and then we'll just snap it off the front. Just keep going back and forth till it snaps. Okay, and here, so this is now our cut version. The no cut needs that bottom piece attached, and we're just going to smooth out the bottom here. Make sure there's no burrs or rough edges. Just get it flat. Just take your time. You can even put a little bit of a file on it if you want to. And that's essentially that ready to go. So this just screws in like that, or plugs in like that. Take your M1.6 screws. We're going to go ahead and screw these in. Okay, and before we put the nuts on, we're going to put this vinyl backing on. It's just a clear vinyl backing to not make sure the board doesn't short out against the metal shield when it mounts. So this is a Kiss Cut sticker. It just comes off. There are holes here, so let's pull the holes off. And then how I like to put the sticker on is I use these holes that I just pulled off as alignment for this on the screws. Okay. I'm just going to put this on. And there you can see I'm just lining on the screws, and then it kind of just self-aligns. You gotta kind of nudge it in the right direction, but it self-aligns pretty easily. And that gets you pretty on there with no problems. Now we're going to take our M1.6 nuts and just screw it down. You don't need to over tighten, just needs to be tight. I mean, it needs to not be loose. Just a snug fit. And I'm not seeing my other nut here. I don't know what I did with it, so I'm going to pull another nut off, so give me a second here. Thought I had two out here. And then we're just going to screw this in. Like I said, I'm just using my fingers to hold the nuts tight. That's as tight as I'm putting it. And this is a very strong connection. When this is plugged in, this has no lateral movement whatsoever. So then our next step is the board needs to sit here. So this little area right here is in the way. So we need to remove this material out of the shield. So let's pull the shield up. And then I'm just going to use side cutters right here. And I'm just going to pull these fins off, like so. And then you can see we need to align back on the shield, so we gotta still remove some material. So we're gonna remove this section right here, essentially from this point to this point. And how I do that is I just take my side cutter still, and then I just take it and wiggle it and just cut straight through the metal. I'll go all the way down here and do it. And this wiggling, we're just doing straight cuts straight down. And I'm going to do another straight cut in the middle. And so this is what I've got. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm now going to take some pliers and I'm just going to grab this metal right here. And I'm just going to wiggle it back and forth till it breaks off. And that'll give me a pretty clean edge. And do it to the other side. If you have a Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel, that's probably the best, cleanest looking method, but this way works pretty well. And it looks pretty good still. So now I'm just gonna clean up these edges a little bit, make sure everything's still pretty straight. So there you go. So now you can see our sections removed. I shouldn't let that underneath there. And so now you can see that this board has no problem sitting here, like so. I am going to flatten this out a little bit. Okay. So the board's going to roughly sit about there, but what we're going to do is I'm going to take this, flip it around, and I'm going to see where my cut is back here, and I'm going to see how it aligns up. And so you can see how the alignment is, where I'm going to be going at. So I'm just going to try and match that alignment. Just make sure. Okay, so we're going to do it there. Like I said, what I'm doing is, I can't really show you on camera, but that's just sitting there floating. And then when I'm dropping this case on, I'm just lining everything up, and I'm lining this up with that. So I'm just getting this alignment right. Okay, because I'm going to mark these screw holes, and then I'm going to screw this board in, and it's going to be permanently stuck to where it is. So the no cut is significantly faster in that sense. So I'm just going to take a screwdriver here. This is my mount point. I'm just going to mark this hole right there. And you can see a little mark. You probably can't see it on the camera. There's a little bit of vinyl backing in these holes. So let's get my mark again. Here's my mark. I'm just marking the metal. And now I'm just aligning it flush because I've got my alignment up, and I'm going to mark this hole over here. And there is a little bit of play in this, so it's not like it's 2 inches of solid steel. I'm going to go ahead and just mark my holes a little bit better with a 2mm drill or M2 drill. Not going to drill through because you will go right through the metal and go into the motherboard. So I'm just prepping it so it's easy. So now that those are prepped, we're going to pull this off. And we're going to use this clothespin. It actually does work pretty well. And then what we need to do is we just need to support this metal shield as we drill through it, because if it's not supported, we'll just bend the crap out of it. So we're just going to drill straight into this clothes hanger. Or not clothes hanger, but yeah, one of these things. And we're going to do the same thing on this hole. That just allows the middle case to stay really straight. If you have a deburring tool to remove the deburrs in the back, it's probably helpful. I don't really have one actually, other than like just a bigger drill bit. So let me just try and get rid of some of these burrs, because there's going to be a nut right on the back side of this. Okay. So now we actually can mount the board. You're going to take your two M2 nuts here. And they're not really threading anything, they're just kind of cutting that metal, making some threads, but they'll eventually break. So we need to put the nuts on the back. Here we go. All right. Take a second here to thread these on. Try it this way here. Okay. Just gonna hold this. I still got those burrs back there, so it's not sinking down very well. There it goes. All right, so there's this screwed on. And then what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to tack these nuts in with solder. So then essentially this whole board can come out and it's no longer like dedicated to this board. So give me 1 second here. Let me switch over to the scope and we can do that. So there's our nut. I'm just going to take a really hot iron. By hot, I mean probably maximum temperature I can do. Put a little liquid flux down, but it's going to burn away instantly. And I'm just going to tack one side. I don't need to do, just going to kind of put it on the nut. And I'm just going to keep my heat there. And then that's all you got to do. Do it to this nut too. Just going to go on one edge, just heat the nut up. I'm not trying to like solder the screw to the nut. We just want this nut to the shield. That's really all that's necessary. And then while we're here, let's also do the solder jumpers for the board. For the PS2, we need to bridge the audio jumpers. So that's going to be C, D, and E. Let's go ahead and bridge those. And then we also need to do the console config jumper, so we're just going to do J, which is right here. Okay. All right, let's swap back over to we're over here. Okay. We're going to go ahead and set our things back in the case here. I'm going to set this in the bottom of the shield, or put the bottom shield in and set the case back in. Now we're going to finish the alignment on this connector. So you can see that this is going to hit this bottom flap. We're just going to cut. We're just going to let it see how it wants to sit, and then we're just going to mark it on this. I'm on the bottom shield right now. And I'm just marking this. Take this bottom shield back off for the top. And you can see I've got this marked right here. I just need to remove this material on this flap. So I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife. You don't want to cut into the bottom of the case, just this flap. Get a little different view here. Okay, so you can see we just removed just that flap. So now this should sit pretty well inside that space. It sits pretty good like that. Let me pull off just a hair of material. Okay. Now we're going to set this back in again. And then what you also can do is, if you want to for alignment, you can put a screw in. We can do it real quick. We can just throw one in. That'll just help keep everything aligned. I'll put one in back here too. Okay. Board still sits like that. We're going to take our top shield where we were cutting. And now let's see how the alignment is. So you can see that I'm really close. I just need to remove a little bit around the edge. I'm right in the middle. You can see the piece wants to stay behind the plastic. So let's just go ahead and remove a little bit of material and just keep test fitting till we're pretty in a good spot. Another way to also do it, just to get your minimum, is you can set the shield in this side too. But I'm just going to keep doing it this way for a little bit. And I'm not really worried about the top to bottom. I'm just worried about the side to side. So I'm just trying to shave off just some small amounts of plastic here. Now we're just going to keep shaving here on the side. And like I said, the cut takes a while. It adds a lot of steps. We'll see where we're at. So you can see we're pretty good on our alignment here. I got side to side good, but we're way too tall or not deep enough. So the case won't close all the way, so we just need to keep going down that direction. So since our side to side is good, I'm going to go ahead and clean it up to what I think is good. Okay, now we're just going to take some more off the bottom. Be careful with the razor blade. It's easy to go too deep, obviously. And so I'm just going to do a recheck. You can see I'm still about a 1/16 of an inch away. I'm just going to do this with this bottom file like this. And really when I file, I'm just trying to be consistent, keep it square. Keeping it square and symmetrical is the key to cutting these out. Because if it doesn't look symmetrical, it instantly looks wrong. Let's get a little bit more up here. where we're at right now. And we are getting really close now. So let's keep working our way down. Just a little bit more. Just slowly making our way down. All right. Oop, this is coming out. Okay, this is where we're getting at right here. So we just maybe need a little bit more, just squaring it up, and then we'll be done with the cutting. Okay, just give me a second here. This is just gonna remove any excess junk around here. Okay, looking pretty good here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stop there. And then also, this area can sometimes hit the antenna. So what I do is I just kind of scrape a little material away. Don't go too deep. If you go too deep, you'll go through the case. So I'm just going to scrape, you know, 0.5 millimeter off. And that'll just give us a little bit of room. And you can see where that is in the case. That's right up here. So if you do go through that, you'll get into this groove. You really can't see it. It's down here. But yeah. All right, so that is done. So now we can start to the fun stuff, the soldering. So I'm going to set the top case over to the side here. I'm going to go ahead and remove my board. And the reason I'm going to remove it is we're going to test it off the board. If you didn't weld those nuts off, then you'll need to leave it on the board. Let's go ahead and pull these off. And then what I like to do is, when I'm doing my soldering, I'm going to leave the top shield on. And then I'm also going to use the existing screws. And I'm going to screw the top heat shield to the motherboard. Just like that. I'm not going to do them all, just the two are fine. And this just keeps it there while we're soldering, and then when we test, it's easy to solder. So let's go ahead and do our flex cables. So let's jump over to the scope. Oh, let me come back to the overhead actually and show you what we're going to do. It's hard to see on the scope. So we're going to install this flex like so. Let's see if we can see this. This flex is going to get installed like this. So you can see this point right here is going to match up with this and then this. So this guy's going to flip over and solder to that. So we're going to solder to this and then bend the flex over. I am going to be using lead-free solder on this since it's lead-free already on here. This is what I'm using. So I'm just going to prep my points that I'm going to do this to, which is going to be this top point. And I'm not actually adding any solder, I'm just heating up the point. Just prepping the pads that I'm going to solder to. Okay. Now that I have the alignment here, my tweezers, I'm just going to loosely tack this in. It doesn't need to be butt up to it. And that's okay. Add a little bit of flux to that. Okay. Now those 2 points are in. We have not soldered this other point yet. We're going to flip it first. This flex cable will be a little bit different on the final design. The final design will also have this as a castellated edge right here. So you can see I'm just getting my alignment. I'm just going to bend it. And then just self-align both these pins. And then let's see if you can see how this cable's looking. It's kind of bent up on me right there. I'm just going to kind of nudge it around. So it goes under. And we're just going to solder this on. And then for this ground, I'm going to use a bigger iron because that little iron I use is not powerful enough. Let's do a little alignment here. Okay. So now the controller is hooked up. You can see what pads I'm soldering to. And let's go to the other end of the flex cable. And we're going to hook up the audio. And so we're going to hook up these points to these points. So again, put down some flux. I'm going to wake these points up. I'm not adding, there's no solder on my iron. I'm just trying to get this leaded-free solder on the board to wake up. And how I do this is I just take a pair of tweezers, spin it around. So I was holding it with my tweezers like this. And I just align it like so. I have no solder yet on my iron. I'm just going to do some alignment since I already woke that solder up. It didn't flow too bad. Add a lot of flux. Now we're going to actually add solder. And then when we do this last pin, it's going to move, so I'm going to hold it down. And there we go, that's soldered in. Then you can see the flux is just up like this. Essentially, this just kind of lays down kind of flat. Just kind of let it go how it wants to go. And then we need one more wire, a reset wire, from top and left corner of the motherboard to the reset point right here. I'm pretty sure on this Mambo, it's this point right here. We can verify that real quick. This will be in the documents about which points for what motherboards. But essentially, to figure this out is this is the switch that we're going to hook into. So I'm pretty sure this bottom is ground. It is. So this top one right here on the switch that I'm checking is our point that we're looking for. So I'm just going to meter that out, and it is that point. So it is this point here. So I'm just going to take some 30 gauge solid core wire here. And run a wire to it. I'm just going to add some flux, make sure there's some fresh solder here. I've actually done this before and just not put new solder on here right here. And I've actually gotten a cold joint on this wire before, so just make sure it's a good connection. It's just a lot easier to get cold joints with lead-free solder. And then when you route this wire over to there, you just want to make sure you stay away from any of the screw down points on the motherboard. And so you can see I'm just going to go right around here, and we're just going to go right here. We're just going to solder our wire into place. Still just going to use lead-free because it's just when I'm doing on the whole board, so might as well keep that going. Down a little bit lower. Okay, and our reset wire is hooked up. You can take a piece of Captain if you wanted to and hold that wire down. I'm going to do that real quick. Just take a real small piece of tape here. We're just going to hold that down, just like so. Just a small piece of Captain tape. Just keep everything from moving around. All right, so now we have the main flex to install. On this board, it's mounted up like this. Like so. Depending on your motherboard, some motherboards are like this. It takes a little bit different of a setup, but on this, you're soldering here. And a couple things, we can go over this while we're looking. Pin 13. Just place my tweezers already. Pin 13 here is our 5-volt hookup right here. So we're going to solder to this via right here. Not via, I'm sorry, to this cap. And then we also need to remove these existing caps. So to do that, I'm actually going to use leaded solder, but I'm not going to touch I'm not going to touch the DAC chip. Just going to use a knife edge tip. It's going to scrape away. You can use hot tweezers, but I find this just being simple. Just don't swipe into the chip. And then we also need to remove these 3 caps as well. And then I'm going to clean up all these pads, clean off the extra solder, because we have a flex cable that's going to lay right over the top, and we don't want anything to short out. Okay, this pad right here can become a problem. It can short out to this pin, which is R0. It can make contact pretty easily. Actually, this one looks okay. There is a revision where this cap sits more over here. Let's see how that lines up. So yeah, it's actually fine. So there's another revision where that pin 1 will sit literally on top of this pad, and then essentially never work. So we're okay there. You just want to make sure excuse me. You just want to make sure that these pads will not make contact with these. So I'm just kind of looking around, making sure that everything's clear, and that looks okay. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up with just some alcohol. Just going to take a little brush. Just want to make sure the area's clean. Now we can really see how our alignment is. Just like that. Now this doesn't have the caps on this flex cable. Yours will, but just ignore mine that it doesn't. So before we solder this, I'm going to add in more flux around the board. And I'm going to do the same thing I'm doing before. I'm going to turn my iron up to 350. That's actually a little hot for this iron. So I'm going to work fast. But what I'm going to try and do is just kind of boil off some of the existing dried flux. I'm just trying to bring those pins alive. If you don't, you probably might have some crucial steps here, or you might have some pins that have bad connections. I'm just going one pin at a time. Okay. So those pins are prepped. So now what we're going to do, put more flux down. And I'm going to solder this with aligning this up here, this over here, and this. That alignment looks good, and then we're just going to swipe up and down. I'm not going to drag solder yet. I may not even drag solder. We'll see how I feel. And there I'm just touching the pins, nothing crazy. And I'm also going to tack these in. Let's add some more flux. Essentially, we're just trying to get its touch, but it looks like we need some more solder, so let's go ahead and add some solder to our knife edge. And this is I'm not going to add very much solder. There's not much pads on these to solder to, so I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to definitely touch up on that again, but I just want to get around the horn here and get all the points tacked into place. This is a ground area right here, so it may require some more heat, and they'll bridge. Alright, so now that we're pretty much tacked in, I'll put more flux down. And now I'm just going to work on this section first. And then I'm just going to add some flux. And it looks like we are going to drag solder. So I really want to try and get some material in here. I'm just trying to get some nice fillets here. Remember, my iron's pretty hot still. It's 360. So if you hang on a point for a long time, you're gonna burn the copper off the flex. So just be careful. We're gonna go onto this edge over here. Clear that bridge off. And there is some ground pins over here, so they may need some more heat or flux. I'm actually going to add some more heat to my iron. I'm going to go to 385. Okay. I'm going to go back on this side and leave my iron hot, 385 still, because of this big ground plane. or not ground plane, but all these ground pins. And let's just clean up this area too. More flux. The hotter your iron is, the faster it'll burn off this liquid flux. Okay, got a little too much there. It's okay, clean my iron off. I can use that to move around here. Go hotter in my iron. My iron's having trouble keeping up with this temp. And I'm just going to do the ground. Go back, lower my temp. I'm going to hit up these edges. These don't look very good to me. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay. Now, the flex cable is essentially soldered in. I'm going to look at some joints here. This joint looks suspicious to me. You can see how it has this strong line right here, this black line. That's a suspicious joint. Even though it looks okay, it could totally be a disconnect. And actually, let's see if it is. I'm going to take a multimeter here, and then let's just see if it is actually making contact. It is. Still going to touch it up. And then these all look okay over here. So what I am going to do, though, is I'm still going to check every pin with a multimeter. Because that's your only way of really knowing if you have a short or not. So I'm really just... So that's okay. There might be some indirect shorts between pins, like 150 ohm on the power pins and ground. And I'm just right now verifying no pins are bridged. So I'm just going down the line here. These are all grounds. So there's 100 ohm short. That could be normal. Yes, that's normal. That's expected. That's a power pin. Okay. Now that is on, we need to hook up this cable, or we need to hook up the 5 volt and the 3.3. The 5 volt is pin, I think it's 13 on the DAC. Yes, it's pin 13, which is this pin right here, but happens to always, there is usually a cap around it. So this cap we can solder directly to this one side of the cap, right here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of solder to my iron here. And we're just going to go on the top. And then we'll go back up and touch that up later. Now we're going to go ahead and solder this on. I know these joints don't look good, but I'll come back and touch them up. Just want to make sure we don't have any lifts. Okay. We're just going to touch all these up again. Okay. All right. It's fine. So I'm just going to move this over here. Just cover those up, that's fine. And we're just going to add some solder to this. Let's see if we can bridge these. Nope. All right, not getting to that via, so I'm just going to scrape a little off just to allow some solder to flow through. Okay. All right. All right, I'm back here with the board. I'm going to go ahead and do a power up here. I've got controller power, this HDMI right here plugged in. We should get a slow glow on the LED. Then it should turn solid once I switch over to the input. Let's see what we get. Yep. Now I'm going to go ahead and open the OSD, which is left, right, L1, L2, or I'm sorry, L1, R2, and then D-pad right and circle. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the system and then the debug self-test. I'm going to confirm that I have hearts on everything. If you don't have hearts, then you've got some bridge pins somewhere. So, so I'm going to go and power down, so that looks good. Switch to the overhead here. And now we can just start putting it back into the case. we need to remove these two screws that we had in for the heatsink. And then you can also see when we put this on, these are going to make contact with that. So we just need to cut a few of these off. I think about 3 is enough. And just side cut them like this. 1, 2, 3. And then you can see that easily clears that. So let's screw these back in. Just the 4 small screws go right in here on the bottom side, and then our bottom shield is on. If you want, while you're here, you can go ahead and plug this drive cable in. However, I usually plug the drive in very last. Oops, forgot this. That was a big deal. Do not forget to put that plastic shield down. I imagine this whole board would just short out. It seems like most of the cases I have ever done, the plastic stays in this metal shield. So that is definitely not a common thing that happens. I can't even tell which way this goes. Let's see, looks like it goes like so. Looks like it goes like so. Alright. 2 more screws here. Where's the other screw? There it is. Okay. Bottom shield is on. We can flip her over. We can kind of just start putting it back together here. If you want to, you can set it back in the case. This just folds straight down into that, goes straight up. Okay. Now we can go ahead and screw our board back in. Need a bigger screwdriver. We need our other screw here. Guess I'll use this M2 screw. I'll put a normal drive pin back in there. Alright, so now our board's screwed in, so we'll just hook up the FFC, and I just gently wrap it around like so. Push it in, and I won't fold it down yet. I actually do fold it or lay it flat, but I'm going to wait till we get everything going. I'm going to plug in our Wi-Fi antenna. Just press this down there, And I just usually like run it there on top of the fan. You can use this little, let's see how we can route this easier. See what looks the best. I think I'll go like this. Is on this setup. Sometimes there's heat sinks here and it's easier to route it through, so this needs to be go like this. We'll just go on that side. Tight area, so essentially you're just trying to put this FFC cable in like so, and then, you know, flip it around. Don't try and pull this off. It's glued down, and it's just don't try and pull it off. It's not worth your headache, because if you do pull it off, cool, but then you have to keep it from like this will now be disconnected and the laser will hit it. So I just leave it how it is. And then we're also gonna, this FFC is not seated properly. I can see. So let's reseat this. All right, now we're seated properly. All right, I should have. All right. Just make sure everything clips down. Screw it back together. If you use power tools, make sure to you know, have a torque value, so you don't over torque these, because you'll easily strip out the plastic screw bosses. We'll just work our way around here. All right. And now we've got a HDMI modded console here. Usually what I like to do, so this particular model doesn't have a screw hole in it. For example, this model right here, this is a 75,000, has this screw hole right here. That's what this little extra clip is for. It essentially goes, you screw it in there with an M3 screw, and then when the lid lifts, it doesn't lift all the way and hit the HDMI connector. This one does not have it, so we can't put that in, so we just have to be careful with that. So after I do an install like this, I usually let the console run for, I don't know, an hour or so, just to make sure that everything gets warmed up and everything checks okay. I'll leave it depowered and then start it up again, and do that not only a few times, and then if it's good, then it's good. So let's go ahead and boot up again. We're up. I hear some disc spinning. looks like we're booting. All right, perfect. And that's pretty much the install.